Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the council public meeting for Tuesday, May the 27th. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Before I do, or as we do that, I need to read the public hearing statement. If a person, public body, or specified person does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Richmond Hill in respect of a proposed official plan amendment or zoning bylaw amendment, the person, public body, or specified person is not entitled to appeal the decision of the City Council to the Ontario Land Tribunal and may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. So for those of you in the audience and for those of you watching online, I just wanted to be clear, this meeting tonight is a council public meeting, not a regular council meeting. And the purpose of that meeting, or this meeting, is to introduce a development application when it's completed. There will be no final decisions on approving or not approving any of the issues before us tonight. What will happen is the council member that moves a motion will be moving a motion to refer all comments back to staff so that staff can continue with what is in most cases the beginning of the process going forward. So, but what the other purpose of the meeting, and I guess maybe the main purpose of the meeting, is to hear from the public any comments on any of the applications. And so once the city planner introduces the application, the applicant will have a chance to also speak to the application. And once that happens, we'll open it up to the floor for anybody in the audience to speak on the application. And when you do so, you have 5 minutes to address council. And then once we're finished with all the members of the public that want to speak, it'll be council's turn to speak. And then we'll have that discussion, move that motion, and refer all the comments heard tonight back to staff. Okay? All right. So I need a motion to adopt the agenda. Councillor Tree, Councillor Hsu, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimously. Disclosures of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof. Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, we'll move to scheduled business. So the first item on the agenda tonight, we have 3 items, by the way, but the first item is official plan and zoning bylaw amendment application for 176 and 180 Weldrick Road West. And our planner is Giuliano Lamogli. And Giuliano, you can introduce that, the application to us.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and members of the public. This first item tonight involves the submission of proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendment applications for the lands municipally known as 174, 176, and 180 Weldrick Road West. So to begin, the subject lands are comprised of 3 parcels located on the north side of Weldrick Road West, east of Walmer Road. The lands have a total lot area of 0.8 hectares with a combined frontage of 82.3 meters along Weldrick Road West. The lands currently contain 3 single detached dwellings, 2 of which are to be demolished to facilitate the proposed development. Adjacent land uses include single detached dwellings and Pemberton Park to the north and east, Weldrick Road to the south, and Patterson Creek to the west. The subject lands are currently designated neighborhood in accordance with the city's official plan. The neighborhood designation permits low-density residential uses such as single and semi-detached dwellings, as well as medium-density residential uses, subject to specific criteria of the plan. The lands are currently zoned second density residential, R2 zone, and flood zone under Bylaw 2325 as amended. The R2 zone, which applies to the eastern portion of the lands, permits single detached dwellings, among other uses. The flood zone, which applies to the southwest corner of the lands, permits conservation, forestry, and recreational uses. The applicants are seeking council's approval of its official plan and zoning bylaw amendment applications to permit a low-density residential development comprised of 12 single-detached dwellings. The proposed single-detached dwellings are to measure 3 stories in height with access from a private condominium road. Each of the proposed dwellings are to be designed to accommodate up to 2 additional residential dwelling units. Further, the applicants are proposing to retain and expand the existing dwelling presently located at 180 Waldrick Road West. Given the presence of a floodplain, the official plan amendment application seeks to amend the policies with respect to natural hazards, specifically to permit the proposal within hazardous lands and to reduce the minimum protection zone of 10 meters associated with hazard lands. The zoning bylaw amendment application seeks to rezone the lands to 4th density residential R4 zone under Bylaw 2523 as amended to permit the proposal with site-specific development standards. Planning staff have circulated the subject applications to internal departments and external agencies for review and comment. The purpose of the report is to provide council and the public an overview of the development proposal and has been structured for information purposes only, with a recommendation that all comments be received and referred back to staff for consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And who do we have speaking for the applicant? Okay.
Yes, hello, good evening. Thank you, Mayor West, council members. My name is Thomas Dabowski from MHBC. We're the planning consultants representing our client's interests regarding the proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendment application. Just change the slide here. Awesome. As noted, the subject lands, they comprise of 3 contiguously linked properties, which are municipally known as 174 through to 180 Waldrick Road West. When reviewing the high-level project statistics, the proposed development, it essentially develops approximately 60% of the subject lands, generally within the eastern and central portions of the site. The western portion of the site, which is located closest to the adjacent hydrological feature and adjacent natural heritage features, including its vegetation and trees, are proposed to be retained. The proposal provides approximately 5,000 square meters of new residential GFA on the site. It provides 12 new 3-story single detached dwellings and also retains and will further expand the existing 180 Waldrick Road West dwelling for a total of 13 dwellings on the site. It provides a total of 51 new parking spaces on the subject lands, which consist of 48 residential spaces, so essentially 4 residential spaces per each lot, as well as 3 visitor parking spaces. This is just an overview of some of the submission materials that were prepared and submitted to ensure a complete OPA-ZBA application submission. This includes a natural heritage evaluation study, a functional servicing and stormwater management report, just to name a few. Overall, these materials collectively demonstrate that the proposed development can be appropriately accommodated and can function on the subject lands. This is the site plan. So as was noted, the proposed development generally occupies the eastern and central portions of the site. The proposal gains access by way of 1 private road, which extends northwards off of Waldrick. A sidewalk is provided along the western edge of the private roadway. 3 visitor parking spaces are provided to the north of the first dwelling. You also have 2 snow storage areas on site, 1 to the west of the visitor parking spaces, and a second larger area located to the west near the northern terminus of the roadway. Now, to kind of add a little bit more detail, the landscape plans, they provide much more information when it comes to the wide range of both hard and soft landscaping interventions that are proposed across the site. This includes street-facing tree planting and boulevard enhancements, landscaped front yards and rear yards, pathways and decorative paving treatments, outdoor furniture and plantings, all of which are intended to foster a pleasant and functional living environment. These landscaping interventions, they intend to support the day-to-day well-being of residents and visitors, but also to enhance the streetscape quality and contribute meaningfully towards the public realm as is experienced from Waldrick Road West. These are some general elevations. So as noted, the proposed development comprises of 3-story dwellings. They feature traditional architectural forms and articulated facades and a cohesive material palette. Attention has been paid to massing and detailing to ensure compatibility with the adjacent low-rise residential uses, while offering a visually appealing and context-sensitive built form. Now, to briefly conclude, these are some of the renderings which provide further illustrated detail on the proposed development, and it also demonstrates the architectural quality that is being pursued. So this is the first rendering, which provides a more traditional treatment with a uniform brick facade and warm color tones. This is a second rendering that might be further explored, including, which contains a more contemporary aesthetic, utilizing deeper materials and enhanced articulation. Now this is them side by side. In both cases, the design reflects a commitment to high-quality materials, clear architectural rhythm, and thoughtful massing, with further details which shall be advanced and explored as part of the project's detailed design stage. This concludes our brief presentation. We welcome the opportunity to respond to any questions or comments. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. And now we have one person signed up already as a delegation from the public, Yelina Goran. Welcome, Ms. Goran, and you've got 5 minutes to address council.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name's Yelina Goran. My husband and I own the property at 168 Waldrick Road West. My husband and I live there with our 3 children. They all grew up in that home. We've lived in this home for the last 15 years, and we strongly object to the development being proposed. I guess what was presented by my friend here was part of the story. The second part of the story is a corresponding development that's being proposed after this is approved on the other side of our property. So this huge development on the west side of us, with the goal of replicating it on the east side of our property line, will make it impossible for us to continue living in our home. This huge development proposed by our neighbors will have 7 houses with 3 units in each house. So that wasn't discussed today, but the fine print in their proposal is that they would like to add an additional 2 dwelling units to each dwelling. And this is backing directly onto our lot, and it'll be on both sides of our property without any buffer space. The proposed height is 14 meters, which is really about 4 stories, not 3 stories. And that means that we'll essentially have a concrete wall running all the way down our property line on both sides of our property. This will block the light to our house, it'll block our views, and it will shadow the entire lot. They're not proposing to put any kind of road or buffer between our property and the 2 developments that are proposed on each side of our property. What they're really proposing is to build townhouses without calling them townhouses, because each unit will have 3 dwellings in it. And given that there's no roads being proposed to separate our property from these 2 other properties, will be locked into our lot. They're putting a road, I don't know if you recall the picture, they're putting a small road parallel to Waldrick Road in the middle of the property. And this means that about 100 cars will be going into this little road, driving right up to our kitchen and our bedrooms. The builders are proposing, so if there's an additional 2 units added to each dwelling house, there's going to be 36 new families moving next door to us on each side of our lot, meaning that we'll have approximately 200 new neighbors on each side of our house. And this is by no means a low-density development. And like, how are these 400 additional people going to pour out onto Waldrick Road West in the morning to go to work? It's a 2-lane road. And, you know, the traffic and the noise that this will generate is just unimaginable. And it's going to be intolerable. They're proposing... Oh, sorry.
You got a minute still.
Oh, sorry. They're also proposing to build on an environmentally protected land with a low water table. This may result in flooding and damage to our land. It will hugely interfere with our enjoyment of our property. Our home will not be resellable, and it'll be a huge financial loss for us. We request that the city not put us in a situation where continuing to live in our home becomes unbearable and our home will lose essentially all its value. The builder's objective is to make our living situation completely unbearable so that we hand over our home to them at a fraction of the cost so they can maximize their profits. And we urge the city to reject this proposal.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Goran. Is there anybody else in the audience? Okay, come on up, sir. I need you to state your name and address for the record, and then you've got 5 minutes also to address council.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Sheldon Stroh, 27 Walmer Road. So I'm the first house north of this whole process here. I want to bring up two things. First of all, the guy who was in charge of planning, he talks like he does this all the time, and he probably does. I don't. So I wish he'd talk a bit slower, and maybe I'd understand more of what he said. I did get catch on to some of these things. Where do I find out all these things? Honestly, I don't know. Because one of the things that bothers me is when you look at these drawings, there's no dimensions. There's nothing telling me it's 10 feet from here and it's 20 feet from here, it's 50 feet from here. There's nothing that I can see. They may give me a square footage, which means nothing to me. So I'd like to see some drawings with some dimensions, and I'd like to see a list of the things that they're trying to get out of for the to get their application through.
Okay, this isn't really a back and forth, sir. It's
No,
just,
that's fun.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
okay, no, it's a fair question, yeah.
All right. I just need to find out later on through whatever parties, who do I see about getting the dimensions and who do I see about getting all of these things for the variances? Because I know that when we lived on the floodplain, when we did renovation to our house, I wasn't even allowed to plant Kentucky bluegrass grass seed in the backyard because it's not native. So how you can actually turn around now and reclaim some land in the floodplain is beyond me, right? Because in my experience, that's not what it was like, right? That's all I have to say.
Okay,
Thanks.
sir, I'm going to give you an early Christmas present, and I'm going to give you the staff report so that you can read that at your leisure, because it
Thanks
does
very
have a
much.
lot of answers in there. So, but you won't be getting anything else from me for Christmas.
That's okay.
Right. All right. So is there anybody else? Actually, I think you, ma'am, were next. Come on up. No, it's okay. Come on up. And then you, sir, will be next.
Hi, my name is Dominic Stalter. This is my wife, Daniela Arciero. She owns a property adjacent to the lands proposed for this development. 9 Wainwright. We too are strongly object to this development on the basis that they're seeking variances that we don't understand what the justification for allowing those variances are. As the previous speakers both said, they're looking for a variance to 14 meters high when I think the current permissible height is 11. This is surrounding all single-family homes, and we concur, they are seeking to put 3 dwellings on a 3-family home in each dwelling. This was confirmed by their real estate agent, who is advertising to those prospective buyers that we are seeking permits to allow 3 dwellings on 3 family homes in each dwelling. So it isn't we're not mistaken about that if their real estate agent are proposing this. So the transparency isn't there. They're calling it single family homes when in fact these are 3-family homes. And we're not against development, but stick within the permits. We don't know what the clearance between the building and the next property line is. The lady before us had similar concern. We have the same concern. The footprint percentage of the grounds, that's a concern for us as well. We just don't see any justification to allow these variances that will permit them to do what they obviously are planning to do, which is build 3-family homes, and many of them in a single-family home area. And that's going to affect the current people on Weldrick. It's going to affect the people behind Weldrick on Wainwright, and you know, progress needs to happen slowly and in assured manner. I think this is rushing it. They're building high density in a low density area, and I just don't think that's right.
I just wanted to add a couple of things for council to consider. The Weldrick Road West Tertiary Plan for the development at Weldrick and Yonge Street is a very detailed plan, which you may all be well aware of already. It also is, you know, in an area that it would be inappropriate. It's across the street from many well-established condominium buildings. It's beside a gas station. So it's already in a very high-density area, not to mention it's just feet from Yonge Street, so I understand that. Like everybody has mentioned, this is a very low residential or low-density area with single-family dwellings. The perimeter of the property allows for no buffer zone between this proposal and the homes beside and to the north of it on Wainwright Avenue. Wainwright Avenue unfortunately has very shallow lots. They're about 120 feet deep, so the backyards are small, and you can imagine what, you know, it's going to look like when you have 14-meter high, you know, buildings, you know, right into your backyard and then looking into your bedrooms. What we are seeing in one example in Woodbridge, where there's the Board of Trade is being redeveloped and they're putting a brand new subdivision in there. What they have proposed and has passed is that there's a buffer zone, and I get that this is a smaller location, but there's a buffer zone of several meters between the existing established residential community and this new development. So it kind of gives them a bit of tree space and some privacy in their backyard. So I just wanted council to consider those things as well.
We just feel that there's a lack of transparency between what they're telling us, telling everyone that they're going to develop, and what their true plan for development is. And we think that it's up to the council to make sure that this does not proceed as planned or as presented in this plan. And when it comes to the protected lands, the floodplains, I don't see how the council can justify amending the current restrictions to allow for this sort of development when you're talking about a floodplain. I was in El Paso, Texas when they messed with the floodplains, and it was disastrous.
Okay, thank you very much to both of you.
Thank you.
Okay, there was, sir, come on up. So name and address for the record.
My name is Demetria Famelam. I'm here on behalf of 168 Weldrick. First, I'd like to start off with developing these lands is not something new. When the actual current homeowner who passed away was looking into developing these lands for quite some time. Myself, I'm a real estate agent, and I know I've even personally brought clients and approached the city about developing these lands. The city's position has always been, as far back as I can remember, more than 10, 15 years ago, there's no development on these lands. It's currently zoned to have a 50-foot frontage and a certain depth. When did the city stray away from these standards? None of us know. I don't believe the developer even owns this land at this point, last I checked. Is it going through an assignment sale or something like that? Because I know they've approached 168 Weldrick, they approached the current owners, they approached owners all down the street, offering them a $10,000, 20 or whatever it is, small minimal deposit, and plan to make this huge development and proceed forward. And then afterwards, they may or may not purchase the land if it does or does not get approved. And what's happening is in cahoots with their real estate agent and the developer, they marketed this as townhouses, as apartment buildings, as detached homes, as a house to go live in, anything you can imagine. They took whatever it may be, throw it against the wall and to see what's going to stick. This is what we're with today. In the meantime, for the past 4 years, as they're flip-flopping back and forth, they've made these homeowners' life a living hell. Sorry for my expression. Because even if they wanted to move, they erected massive illegal signage for the past 4 years on the property, advertising townhouses for sale. When were these townhouses approved? Nobody knows. Finally, after contacting the city, 50 times, they finally cut down the signs with a chainsaw. The properties are not taken care of, and honestly, myself and discussions with majority of the neighbors and the homeowners, nobody thinks that they have any plan of building these houses or apartment buildings. So we strongly would urge the city to reject their proposal, because first off, it's not something that's ever previously been approved. City's always had a position on how they'd like to see the development in the middle of Waldrick, a quiet city street, move forward. And this position has always been to keep the status quo of a minimum 50-foot frontage and a minimum depth requirement. Why would you enter into an agreement or whatever sort of purchasing plan you have with these homeowners if you know exactly what's permitted on this property? What's this immediate need for R4 housing in the middle of a street with pretty much bungalow estate homes? That's what all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, no, thank you very much, sir. Okay, is there anybody else that would like to speak on this application? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring this back to council. This is actually a Ward 5 location, but Councillor Silovitz is not well tonight, so she's not here. And I think she talked to Councillor Thompson to bring this forward on her behalf. So Councillor Thompson, if you want to move the motion to refer all comments back to staff, and go ahead and speak if you wish.
All right, thank you very much. Yes, it's Councillor Silovitz does send her regrets that she wished that she could be here this evening. She does have a few comments that she would like me to express, but I think number one, I think she would definitely want to thank all the delegates that have come out and spoken this evening. Before today's application was heard, she did indicate that she had only received one written communication up until 11 o'clock this morning. But I know that she would be very interested in being able to hear from each and every one of you. We're at a very early stage at this particular point in time. This is just an idea that has been brought forward. And the whole thing at this point is to hear all the comments and refer them back to staff. And I'm sure that Councillor Silovitz would welcome all the comments from the delegates that have spoken and would certainly like to connect with each and every one of you. She did also indicate that she had spoken with staff and the applicant, and the bulk of the comments that she had received thus far, she was more or less comfortable with, except that she did want to get some clarification in terms of where there is a mention of the lot coverage being 50% and being so close to the floodplain. So I know that, this would be a TRCA type of situation to look at. But if TRCA believes that the buffers are okay and that it meets with their engineering, then she would also, have to accept that that is the case here, if that's what TRCA says. She does note that this particular application would be similar to others that she has seen through Dexter Road extension, similar with the Annette Gate. So these, which are, I guess, to the west of this location. But if you're looking at it in general, detached homes would be something that would be best in this area when you're talking about infill, and that having smaller ones would certainly be more suitable for more affordable options to help us meet those housing crises that we certainly are feeling today. Beyond that, I think I've covered off all the comments that she wanted to make at this this point, but definitely she would definitely want each and every one of you to reach out to her so that she can get more information on all of that. So I don't know if she was actually looking for a comment for staff in regards to the floodplain and the coverage of the 50% and the buffers. Did TRCA indicate anything at this point in time?
If I may, TRCA is Toronto Region Conservation Authority. Go ahead.
Through the chair to Councillor Thompson, at this stage, TRCA is continuing to review the application. They generally don't comment with respect to coverage. Rather, they're going to be looking at the floodplain, the extent of the floodplain, as well as the buffers that are applied to floodplain to determine what the development limits should be. And then within the limits of development, the municipality will determine what the appropriate development standards should be applied to the development at hand.
Got it. Thank you. Through the chair. So it sounds like we're just not at that stage at this point in time. I think those are all the comments at the moment, Mr. Mayor, and return this back to you.
Councillor Davidson.
Thank you, and thank you everyone who came through you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple of questions. One is the map in the package from staff shows the natural core areas exactly around this property. Is it actually encroaching on any core areas?
Through the chair to Councillor Davidson. So the map 4, which is the OP designation, is illustrative.
Yeah.
So it's actually not, doesn't necessarily delineate to the exact degree whether the feature is actually on the property or not. We've determined that there is a portion of the feature that is on the property, and the applicant has submitted a natural heritage evaluation and a phase 1 environmental assessment, which will assist the city as well as the Toronto Region Conservation Authority in determining the features, the extent of the features, the extent of the floodplain, and any associated buffers that need to be on the property to facilitate development on the lands.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So in simple terms for me, it means that the environmental impact, the flooding, all those things, we haven't received final reports on those things yet. So we may see a change in plans based on those reports.
Through the chair to Councillor Davidson, we've seen the reports. We're currently reviewing the reports, which may determine the development limits of the property. So depending on the assessments that are accepted by the TRCA and staff, we will determine whether or not significant revision or the proposal as currently constituted is appropriate from a strictly TRCA and city perspective in terms of floodplains, buffers, and the extent of the natural features on the property.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Hypothetically, completely hypothetically, can someone submit a plan application to the city on a piece of property they don't own? Is that this hasn't come up to me before, but hypothetically, do you have to own a piece of property to get approval for a plan?
Through the chair to Councillor Davidson. So typically when the property is not owned by the applicant, we require the owner's authorization to submit an application on their behalf.
Thank you.
Okay, and you'll second the motion? Okay. Regional Local Councillor Chan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you everyone who come out and people who spoke. I hear your concern loud and clear. And perhaps you, Mr. Chair, I do have some question I want to ask based on the staff report, but just on the basis what I've been hearing on the oral delegation, because on paper, it looks to me there is 12 additional single detached that is being applied for. However, not one, more than one delegate we're talking about that appears to be marketed or advertised as such without any approval, mind you, of anything go from single, I even hear 3 family units, whatever. Through you, Mr. Chair, from our planning staff, to what extent that the city planning down the road, assuming, let's say, approve for 12 additional units to the existing one. What kind of measure that the city does have to ensure that will be actually 12 additional single family? Do we have that authority or no? Through you, Mr. Chair.
Through the chair to Councillor Chen. So the applicant is proposing 12 new single detached dwellings. And that is what, should the city deem that appropriate, we would approve the lands for 12 single detached dwellings. It would appropriately be zoned in that regard. What I think you're trying to get at is the additional residential units that may be permitted. So the ARUs, as you recall, we passed an ARU bylaw in 2024 that allows up to 4 units per lot as of right. And there are variations to that depending on lot size, what have you, if they want to have some in a accessory structure or entirely all in one dwelling. The province amended regulations in the Planning Act that allows for 3 additional residential units in a dwelling. The city went a step further and allows for 4 residential units in total. So 1 primary plus 3 additional residential units as of right across the city. So that's where we're getting the notion of the 3 additional units. That is permitted as of right currently today. So this application in front of us would only seek to permit the 12 single detached dwellings, the additional ones. The ARU permissions exist today and would apply to those properties in the future.
I hear you. And I can understand where discomfort from residents come from. So now I'm turning to the things we also have control of based on the staff report. On page 8, it's talking about the minimum front yard setback seeking is moving from 25 feet to 5 feet. That's quite a drastic shift. And would that be considered appropriate and common in this type of expanding the number of building lots? For you, Mr. Chair.
Through
Page
the chair, Councillor Chen. So as you take a look, the R4 zone that's currently proposed is under a very old bylaw, and it really facilitated what you see in that neighborhood today. So the 25 meter front the 25 meter front yard is what reflects there today, and they're looking to redevelop the lands. So they're looking at a much larger front yard setback to a much shorter front yard setback, which is more typical of newer development that you would see for residential.
Okay, yeah. Actually, when I look at the agent's illustration, it seems to be almost, the front is almost right to the lot line or something like that. But it will still have about 5 feet. So that's, I can understand what people who are currently living there will have concerns about. The other thing talking about, I believe I might have heard certain land may be tied, and help me understand through Mr. Chair on page 10, from planning staff, there is something about the future lots in this parcel of titled land. What does that really mean? Would that be impacting on adjacent lands? I just want to get some clarification through Mr. Chair.
Through the chair to Councillor Chen, no. So we've just flagged the fact that the applicant has not submitted a draft plan of subdivision, which is typically done when a particular area is not under a registered plan of subdivision any longer. So we're basically asking, how are you planning on dividing these lots up? Because it isn't being done through a draft plan of subdivision. So we've asked the applicant for clarification, and it would only apply to the subject lands and not to anybody else's lands.
So we're not far from being there yet, if I understand it correctly. This is only a zoning bylaw amendment at this point in time.
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so this is something have to be visited in addition to my colleagues mentioned about the buffer and all these other things. No further comments or questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I support the motion in front of us.
Councillor Tree?
Okay, thank you so much, through you, Mr. Chair, to our planning teams. So I look at this map 8. Even we talking about the current proposal, that is around 50% of the coverage of the land. I look at the map 8. So from what I see now, I can see for the phase 1, there's only 12 dwellings. Phase 2, if I count correctly, definitely this is just projection, right? There are 15 dwellings. And look at another map, even there is no such design yet, it might be a similar 15 as well. If you sum up all those 3 pieces of project together, just in case we approve the phase 1, it's gonna be around 30 plus 12, it's gonna be around 42 pieces of land just on this small patch. If you calculate the parkings, only for the phase 1, 48 parkings there. Just 48 cars, just assuming, okay? So 3 connect together, that'd be 150 cars just on there. If you look at the entire street, Wild Street, they're all houses caricatures. And this piece of land actually sits in the middle of the entire block. So I go back to maybe the simple ways. Normally, we approve a little bit high densities at either the main street or the corner. I haven't seen type of the high densities. I want to say high density, maybe my term is not right. But I'm just saying in the middle of the road, 150 units of cars in there, around 50 units. Is this really the community characters? I'm just throw the question here. So I would like maybe consider, is this what city trying to achieve?
Through the chair to Councillor Tree. So as part of the application in front of us, we're only taking, map 8 actually goes beyond that. One of the things we ask the applicant to do is demonstrate how this development could potentially fit into the neighborhood. And they've created this concept plan. So by no way, shape is this an endorsement of this proposal. It's simply you're proposing a new form of development in this area that is largely low density residential. Show us how it would not preclude development on adjacent lands and how it would fit in. So as part of the review and evaluation of the application, the things that you've mentioned in terms of, including a new private road, the amount of units that could potentially be traveling on that new private road, the number of units in this area, all of those things will be considered as part of the review and evaluation of this application and looking at the context of the area.
Okay, and my next question regarding to the snow services here. If I look the MVP1 or release 1, just there's a single line there. I saw in the middle there is a maybe turning point. Just concerning about garbage, whether garbage collections or is the snow services, is that enough space?
Through the chair, Councillor Tree, all of those matters will be reviewed as part of the evaluation of the application to ensure that the development, if deemed appropriate, can function on its own with respect to snow storage and waste removal.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's all my questions so far. I just want to echo one more time. If the phase 1 really is just being improved like this, and the phase 2, phase 3 coming up, and this might be a bottleneck because currently the Wild Street only have single lane in and out. Inside, in the middle of this road, we pop up around 100 cars. Turn whenever right or left might be a problem. I'm just comment on that. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else on council? Okay, seeing none, I just have a few comments. I wanted to just address a couple of things that some of the comments said, and I really do appreciate everybody coming out. I think collectively and individually, your concerns were very well conveyed. Somebody said something about straying away from standards, and I think the public needs to understand that that's not, I don't really think that that's probably a very good way to describe this, because the Planning Act and the dictates from the province on what municipalities need to conform to has changed substantially. So I don't think it's really us that's straying away from standards, but in a lot of cases, it's us responding to what the province has now changed in terms of the Planning Act. And I think that's very important to remember. I mean, we are in a housing crisis, so there is, you know, a lot more pressure on municipalities in urban areas like this to build housing. I'm sure you've heard that in the media again and again, and we are on council living that change. And I get it. I mean, I understand the reason that the province is doing it. But anyway, having said that, this is not really affordable housing. Now, I do appreciate that the builder is trying to find an innovative way to make a very expensive dwelling unit affordable by allowing the built form of the house to accommodate the possibility of additional residential dwelling units. And to be clear on that, again, the province a few years ago brought down changes in the Planning Act to say that any home in a residential area in Richmond Hill can have 3 and now up to 4 dwelling units. So any of one of your houses, you could rent out the basement. You could have a secondary suite in the backyard. I mean, there are some restrictions to that, but it's pretty much as of right. So on the one hand, I do appreciate that this is a fairly innovative way to make expensive housing more affordable by allowing the owner of the house to have other people, you know, sharing the space with them and also sharing the cost. But again, having said that, there is no infill plan for this area, is there? And I think that's part of the concern that I have, is that I think in the end, we're at the very beginning of this planning process, but I really do think that what we're seeing in front of us today is what we'll call a very ambitious plan from the developer to maximize the yield on the land for housing units. And it, you know, it's up to planning staff to go through that application and make sure that, you know, anything that needs to be changed based on our policies, which are mostly in conformance to provincial legislation, are actually taken care of. But I think at the end of the day, I personally think that this is a little bit more than this area realistically should be handling. I don't like the look of those buildings. I think it's actually, to me, it's a very strange form of building, because it's almost like they're townhouses, but they're not. And so that brings me, I guess, to the final question, and I'm a little puzzled by this. Why, like, I guess, have we in situations like this allowed private roads in situations like this? Because it seems like we're cramming a lot into that area. And I mean, this is smack dab in the middle of an established residential neighborhood. I'm not sure what that was.
Me neither. It wasn't me. So to answer your question, this is a proposed common element condominium. Typically, we're not seeing common element condominiums for single detached in the city. I know Oak Knoll was kind of one of the first and generally largest common element condominium developments with single detached. So it's not uncommon, and quite often developers are doing this to minimize the need to install a public road network. So it's not impossible. It is an opportunity to create additional density in the area, and it has. Does it go beyond the parameters of the OP? It doesn't. So it is an opportunity to create a gentle intensification, if you will, and I use that very with quotations. It does allow for intensification beyond what would typically be allowed in a general area. But what we do have is the official plan policies, which really speak to the compatibility of the proposed development and kind of what, to allow for the evaluation of the proposal in the context of what's there. So that's where we're going to have to do an evaluation, is does this make sense here? It doesn't at current. The only official plan policies that the applicant is seeking relief on is with respect to the natural hazard lands and buffers associated with the OP. Beyond that, they generally meet the other official plan policies, but we are currently evaluating it to ensure that it does meet all the other parameters for infill development.
Okay, well, I would like, I'm still concerned. And I think, you know, I get that some of these issues may not realistically be within our control, but I think we need to look very carefully at those to make sure that we are doing something that represents good planning. I guess the last thing I just wanted to mention was the floodplain issue. So, you know, Toronto Region Conservation Authority has not yet commented on the exact delineation of the floodplain. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, I mean, I've driven by that place many times, and I realize how close that is to the creek. So I have to assume that there's there is an issue with flooding, and you know, heaven knows with more intense storms and so on that we're having, we need to be very careful that we're not going to be building in a place that's ultimately going to be in a hazard area. So. Okay, so thank you. I do appreciate the comments, and as I said, I do appreciate everybody coming out and very succinctly and to the point bringing forward some of the concerns that you all have in the neighborhood. You know, there's a new way of doing development in Ontario right now, and we do have to comply with it. But at the same time, you know, we do need to make sure that we're doing the best that we can from a so having said that, unless there's any other comments, and I don't see any, we have a motion to refer all comments back to staff, moved and seconded. So all those in favor, opposed, that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. And thank you everybody for coming out for that. You're welcome to stay for the other applications if you would like. The next application is request for comments, official plan and zoning bylaw amendment application for 0 Longworth Avenue. And our planner on that file is Giuseppe Russo. And if you can let us know what's going on there, Mr. Russo, that would be great.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor West, members of council and the public. The second public meeting tonight involves official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment applications to permit a high-density mixed-use residential and commercial development on the lands municipally known as 0 Longworth Avenue. The subject lands are located at the southwest corner of Leslie Street and Longworth Avenue, have a total lot area of approximately 2.35 acres and a total lot frontage of approximately 89 meters along Longworth Avenue and 108 meters along Leslie Street. The lands are currently vacant. The surrounding land uses include single detached and townhouse dwellings to the north, agricultural lands within the Oak Ridges Moraine to the east, and single detached and townhouse dwellings to the south and west, which are currently under construction. The lands are designated neighborhood commercial in accordance with the city's official plan. The applicable policies allow for a range of uses, including retail, commercial, and office uses. Development within the neighborhood commercial area are subject to a maximum building height of 2 stories. With respect to the current zoning, the subject lands are zoned neighborhood commercial zone under Bylaw 5415. Through these applications, the applicant is seeking approval to permit a high-density mixed-use development to be comprised of 2 5-story buildings at a density of 2.03 FSI, containing 201 apartment dwelling units. The proposal is to incorporate indoor and outdoor amenity space, a green rooftop, and underground parking. Access to the site is to be provided from Longworth Avenue. The applicant's official plan application seeks approval to redesignate the subject lands from neighborhood commercial to residential mixed use and to add site-specific exemptions to include permissions to allow for a high-density mid-rise residential and commercial uses, a maximum building height of 5 stories, permit outdoor amenity space on the rooftops, and permit underground and surface level parking. The applicant's zoning bylaw amendment application seeks approval to rezone the subject lands to residential mixed-use zone under Bylaw 5415 as amended, with site-specific provisions to implement the development proposal. Staff have circulated the applications to internal departments and external agencies for review and comment. The purpose of the report is to provide council and the public with an overview of the applicant's development proposal and has been structured for information purposes only, with a recommendation that all comments be referred back to staff for consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And let me see here who we got for the applicant. Who do we have? Okay. Hello, sir. How are you?
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council, staff, members of the public. My name is Keith McKinnon. I'm a partner with KLM Planning Partners, Inc. Also with me this evening is my colleague, Zanara Butt. Both of us have been working on this project. We're certainly pleased to be here before you this evening to present our proposal. So as Mr. Russo noted, we have filed an official plan amendment and a zoning bylaw amendment application to the city for 0 Longworth Avenue. The noted lands are at the southwest corner of Leslie and Longworth. Mr. Russo noted that it is about 0.9 of a hectare, just over 2 acres in size, with frontage both on obviously Leslie and Longworth Avenue. The development proposal application is for 2 5-story mid-rise buildings, which would accommodate 201 residential dwelling units. We had wanted to ensure that as part of this development application that we didn't remove obviously the commercial permissions that are there today. So we wanted to better integrate that as part of an overall development application. So by doing that, we've included about 780 square meters of commercial floor space. That obviously would provide enough commercial uses to ensure that the community uses or community functions that would be provided by a typical commercial unit in that area could still be served by the residents that live and will live in this area. We've got about 690 square meters of amenity space, 280 approximate residential parking spaces, and 135 bicycle parking spaces. Mr. Mayor, you certainly hit the nail on the head earlier that we are all a creature of the province these days. It seems as though the planning world and policies related to it are changing at an ever fast speed. Well, obviously with the latest with Bill 17, one of the most major updates, of course, was now known as the provincial planning statement, used to be provincial policy statement, which was provided to the province for all municipalities, and applications of which, to be consistent with, have to be adhered to within the province of Ontario. There are a number of different policies related to it. We've outlined a few here. I certainly won't go through them. We, of course, still have the Oak Ridge Marine Plan, which is still in place. When we were actually developing this overall community back in the day, when it was ultimately approved by settlement at what then was known as the Ontario Municipal Board back in 2016, the Oak Ridge Marine Conservation Plan still formed a major part of this overall community. We have the York Region Official Plan. Obviously, the difference there being now is that forms part of the City of Richmond Hill versus what used to be with York Region. Now that's under the city's purvey. We've got a number of different requirements and designations, all of which lend itself to permitting development on the subject property. We've outlined a number of different policies in the York Region Official Plan, obviously wanting to ensure that development is consistent with the provincial planning statement, certainly is conforms to the Oak Ridge Marine Conservation Plan. We have a number of different policies that relate to ensuring adequate provision and supply of residential units, ensuring that we provide a range and mix of uses, ensuring that we are developing land in its most efficient way to ensure that land and resources and infrastructure are being used efficiently, all of which have been identified as part of the work that's been undertaken as part of our application. We have the City of Richmond Hill Official Plan and, of course, the West Gormley Secondary Plan. West Gormley Secondary Plan has been around for quite a long time. This identified site was designated, still is designated as neighborhood commercial in the West Gormley Secondary Plan. Certainly appreciate the city is currently undergoing a review of your official plan, which likely will include the West Gormley Secondary Plan as well. But in terms of timing for us, our applications are already ahead of that scheduled timeframe. In terms of our official plan amendment, as Mr. Russo noted, we're seeking to have residential mixed use on the subject site, which would allow both residential and commercial uses to prevent a maximum height of 5 stories to create, again, an appropriate mix of both the commercial uses and residential uses to ensure we're creating a high quality development that ensures residential uses are being permitted in conjunction with the commercial uses. Got a number of policies related to the West Gormley Secondary Plan. Again, I won't go through those, Your Worship and members of council. You're certainly well aware of these policies, but for those members of the public, these are policies that we have to review in terms of development applications, and we've done that as part of this application. The current Richmond Hill City zoning bylaw.
Wrap it up.
Yeah, okay. I'll just skip to the end here. So Mr. Russo noted we do have some identified elevations. These are representative examples. Our client has retained a very high-quality architect in Turner Fleischer to provide what we feel is a very high-quality development to this location. It's an important location. It's on a regional road, major intersection in this location. We feel that certainly the concept plan and the renderings associated with it are representative of that. These are the materials that have been submitted as part of the application. They're certainly with the city that can be reviewed by any members of the public.
Okay, so you're over time, so just, if you could just wrap it up, that'd be great.
And that's it, Your Worship, and happy to answer any questions that council or the members of the public might have.
Thank you, Mr. McKinnon. Okay, so is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak to this? Okay, come on up, ma'am. And if you can just state your name and address for the record, and you've got 5 minutes to address the council. Welcome.
Yeah. Hi. Hello, everyone. I'm Yelina Goran. I'm living in 20 Backhouse Drive, Richmond Hill. So first, I have the big concern. Big concern is the traffic. As far as I know, even at 3 p.m., westbound of Stouffville Road, it's just like a parking lot from Highway 44 to Bayview, right? Especially from 44 to Leslie Street, even at 3 p.m. So I'm just wondering if we add 200 union for the high density building, 2 buildings there, but we don't have any plan on widening Leslie Street. We know we maybe have plan for widening Stouffville Road, but we have to note that the access of this property, Longworth Avenue, the only access is on the Leslie Street. I didn't see any access on Stouffville Road. So I have concern is Leslie Street, the intersection of Leslie Street and the Stouffville Road will be another bottleneck of the traffic. So I would like for everybody here to consider about the future traffic issue. So as far as I know, the region, because the Leslie Street is the right of way of the York region, the York region has no plan to widen Leslie Street. So the traffic issue will be the daily complaint, daily issue for the local resident, and also for the resident of city of Richmond Hill, because Stouffville Road is a main road to the Highway 404 and the GO train station. So everybody use that road for the commute during the rush hour. So it will be a big issue if we approve this this proposal. It's my first concern. I didn't see any traffic study plan has addressed our concern about that. So that's my first concern. And my second concern is the 200 union residential compared to the commercial property. It will be increase the large flow rate of the wastewater flow. So if the I don't know if the city of Richmond Hill has evaluated or reviewed the local sanitary sewer system and also work with York region for the YDSS capacity. YDSS means York during sewage system, because over Richmond Hill wastewater will discharge south to the Daffin Creek water treatment plant. That's another issue. Maybe in future, city of Richmond Hill and will work with York region to review the local sanitary sewers capacity. We review the pumping station also work with the Durham region to review the capacity of Dauphin Creek. So that's a very big issue. If this will increase another issue, normally they will issue a study for the feasibility of the capacity. This study will normally cost $10,000 only for a study. And if the result, we have to increase the capacity, it will cost millions for the design and maybe $10 million for the increase the capacity of the whole system. Who will pay for that? I don't think the developing fee can cover that. So everybody here, everybody resident of York region, everybody resident here from the Richmond Hill will pay that. So I didn't see this proposal. Everybody here or everybody in York region will benefit from this proposal. Even for the future residential of this condo, there are no public transit here, and there are no commercial, no grocery store nearby. The nearest grocery store will be 5 kilometers away here. So if this land of used for a commercial with grocery stores, the local resident will benefit from that. But if we approve the proposal, nobody will benefit from here.
Okay.
So that's my point.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay, is there anybody else from the audience that would like to speak to this? Okay, seeing none. This is Ward 1 item, so we'll go to Ward 1 Councillor Carol Davidson.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, thank you to the delegate. And thank you to the 69 people who sent in letters of opposition to this application. I want to say I know this council does nothing but, well, we do other things, but we really focus on housing. We know there's a need for housing, but not here. This is a very small neighborhood. West Gormley is a contained area of a smaller subdivision. And the West Gormley secondary plan describes it as a cohesive neighborhood with an identity that blends into the surrounding natural area. And 5 stories here would be by far the tallest buildings in the area. And one of the parts of the secondary plan requires development protects views of the moraine. So this is, yes, a settlement area in the Oak Ridges moraine, but it is surrounded by protected areas. As the resident said, there is no transit on this street. On Leslie, no transit in that neighborhood. There's no transit to the GO station. There's no continuous sidewalk to the GO trains, which are limited, by the way. They don't run all day. There's no sidewalks if a resident wanted to ride their bike or walk 5 kilometers to Farm Boy or over 6 kilometers to No Frills. There's no sidewalks. So this neighborhood is pretty much apart from everything else, and trying to go shopping or do anything commercial, you require a car. We really need this commercial building area kept commercial, 2 stories. It will service this community. I don't know if it'll be a store or a daycare or a dentist's office or whatever it is, because I agree the city needs to increase housing, and we do that. But we also need to plan for neighborhoods that are walkable. If we take away the designation of commercial for this plot, we're basically telling everybody in that neighborhood, yeah, you're gonna have to drive everywhere. Every time you want a liter of milk, you're gonna have to drive because there'll be absolutely no services for you in this neighborhood. I agree that it'll increase traffic. I agree that it will be, to me, the thin edge of the wedge of starting to overdevelop this very sensitive area. And it's zoned for 4 for residential, 2 for commercial. And in keeping with the planning and the visions that the city has, I think we need to keep it that way. Through you, Mr. Chair, to staff, if we change the zoning from commercial to mixed use, what is the guarantee that the applicant will still keep the commercial portion? I mean, right now we're hoping for 2 stories of commercial, but if it gets switched to housing as well, and they decide, oh, you know what, we're not going to make it commercial after all, we're going to make it all housing, is there any recourse for the city?
Through the chair to Councillor Davidson, the only way to guarantee that commercial would exist on the property is to put minimum commercial floor area requirements, so that it would ensure that commercial uses need to be part of any development that happens on these lands. That's the only way to ensure it among the other residential uses.
Through you, Mr. Chair. But by removing the commercial designation and making it also housing, we're weakening the strength of our ability to say to that neighborhood, you're going to have commercial, you're going to have maybe some retail, some services. There's more steps now, is that right? To ensure commercial on that corner?
Through the chair, not necessarily. They're asking for a residential mixed use, which is very common along the city's centers and corridors. So if there was a concern that we wanted to ensure that commercial uses remain, we through the approval of the application, if council wanted to ensure that commercial does continue to exist, we would put in minimum commercial floor area requirements so that the residential can't exist without the commercial area being developed as well.
Right, thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I think that, as I just said, 5 stories, 2 5-story buildings, that increase in density will put a huge stress on the infrastructure, on the sewage. And again, this isn't a main corridor. This isn't a main center. This is a small, separate community in the middle of the Oak Ridges Moraine that, unless something big changes about the settlement areas of the Oak Ridges Moraine Conservation Plan, will remain a small community. So there's no need for this much density. It goes against the plan. And I think 2-story commercial is what this neighborhood wants. And certainly 70 people have told me in a very short time that that's what they want. And I hope my colleagues will agree. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Regional Councillor DePaul, you're next. And Councillor Davidson, you will move the motion to refer all comments back to staff. And Councillor DePaul, you will second that? Okay, if you can unmute yourself and you can go ahead.
Okay, happy to second that, Mr. Mayor. And yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with the comments of the ward councillor. This is an area that's separated by nature from most of the other services and amenities. Really not possible to walk even to the GO station. So not a community that's going to benefit from public transit, be car dependent, and a community commercial presence would be really helpful for the community to at least have some walkability. And it's really unfortunate that the few remaining exempted parcels in Richmond Hill that are exempted from the rain. This isn't where we would want intensification. It's a shame that the province has pulled away the major transit station area that this council approved in the York Region official plan. Asked for a major transit station area around Gormley, and the province, has the nerve to say we have to build X number of units, and they downgraded a zoning that was passed by York Region. So, it's very difficult when we're trying to put density where it is a walkable situation to public transit, expensive public transit. So that's the situation we're in. But I wanted to, and I just piped up because I wanted to address the one resident that spoke to the plan here before us. You definitely are very knowledgeable, but the future planning for York Region is a little bit different than what they'll tell you is currently in the 10-year capital plan. Stouffville is meant to be widened. The project is designed and engineered. Construction was imminent, but in examining the migration habits of the Jefferson salamander, it had been delayed, and now the construction costs have really escalated from what was originally proposed, and the region opted to take it out of their 10-year capital plan. Now, I'm hopeful that we can get it back in. And it's something that the community desperately needs. Stouffville widening from Bayview to the 404. It's a very important project. And as the deputy said, the Leslie widening is equally important. And Leslie will be widened. The region does have a plan. As they're building the York Durham sewer system, to really handle capacity for Newmarket and the northern parts of the region. They're no longer going to Lake Simcoe, as you said, going to the Duffin plant in Pickering. That line is servicing other areas. We do have capacity, but as that system sewer is being built, and it's been fast tracked by the province, and they are expropriating lands to allow for a jog elimination of Leslie. So in doing so, rather than going back twice and expropriating land, they're also taking a full width road allowance where they intend to eliminate the jog of Leslie. It will be 4 lanes with left turn lanes. It's a typical standard road like it is the south of 19th Avenue. So the plan is there for it's going to have to be funded. It will be costly, and Richmond Hill will have to fight to get the funding for the widening of Stouffville and Leslie. But that is the future plan, and the regional development charges are going to be allocated toward that project. So we will get there. That community won't be left behind, and those roads will be improved eventually. That's the plan. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor. Anybody else? Go ahead, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much. Through you, the mayor, I'd also like to thank the ward councillor for her comments. I think that's bang on. I mean, this is definitely a car-centric location. This is not anything close to public transit in the way that we would expect to see it in terms of development. And definitely that particular piece of property should be, there's no question in my mind, that should be a small plaza. If you go over to Bathurst and Humberland, you will find a similar type of situation. It's a very car-centric area. You have a small plaza that sits right on the corner that's heavily used by the locals that live in that area. I think this is a classic example of what is actually needed there. Do we need the type of housing that we saw in the proposal? Absolutely. This just isn't the location for it. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Tree.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Just like to know, last weekend, I drove through this intersection, Leslie and Stouffville. There was a car incident. Actually, down the west side a little bit, there was a downhill close to Islamic Society of York. A few years ago, there was a car incident. One resident died there as well. So I'm just seeing Stouffville is really busy street. As long as I'm late for returning back home from 404, as long as I get down from highway, the GO train stations, cars are packed up. That traffic around maybe 30 to 1 hour long. So from maybe 5 until 7, that peak time. So it's always a challenge to get through this area. My question, I believe our regional councillor, Jody Palo, already mentioned, so within 10 years, there is no plan to widen the Stouffville. Is that correct to our maybe director from planning team?
Through the chair to Councillor Tree, I would have to confirm that with our development engineering group, but Councillor DePaula seemed to have a little bit more up-to-date information in that regard than I do.
Okay, so yeah, so that's my concern and question. But also look like around this areas, this you have to drive a car basically. So whenever you go to Costco nearby or go to other locations along Yonge Street, this is really driving area. So intensify here, you're gonna bring more traffic down the road. Rush hour will be headache because GO train are nearby. There's only single line. Until someday, and the bridge on that Stouffville might be reconstructed or build more capacities. This type of traffic will be always showing up ongoing. So I'm not sure 10 years later on, there might be a different situations, but at least within this 10 years, if there's no plan to either widening Stouffville or Leslie, what I can see is the more traffic will be here. So situation will not getting better within the next 10 years. And if you look at Leslie Street, we are seeing more and more densities on Leslie Street, which is around 1 kilometer down their source side. And more cars will come into here along this Leslie and the Stouffville. So yeah, so you're seeing more and more traffic. Maybe 10 years later on, situation getting better, all the infrastructure refreshed. That time being, the situation is different. But so far, I cannot tell or see any improvement around this corner. So this proposal bring around 200 units here, and that might be quite a problem for local community. That is my comment. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, seeing none, again, I'll just make a couple of comments. The advantage of going last is that everything's already been said. I agree. This is a very ambitious plan, and I don't think it's really appropriate for this particular area. Just to be clear, the mixed use component still does allow for commercial on the bottom floor.
Through the chair, to the chair, that is correct.
Okay, I mean, I think we, at the very minimum, and I mean, there needs to be more than just what I'm about to say, but at the very minimum, I think we need to ensure that the commercial that this was intended to supply for the community is maintained. I mean, there does need to be some ability for people to, have stuff that they can purchase and services and so on close by. Can we go back to the original presentation by our staff? I think it was like maybe the fourth slide where there was the artist rendering. I just wanted to ask a little detail. That's it. So does this tell me that the angular plane is being abused in at least two of those diagrams? Like they're not meeting the angular plane.
So the angular plane actually doesn't apply here. Angular plane policies apply to high density, high rise development.
Oh, I see.
Adjacent
Not this.
adjacent to the neighborhood. So in this instance, notwithstanding they've shown angular plane, it actually doesn't apply.
Oh. Why doesn't it apply?
So the angular plane policies apply to high-rise, high-density development adjacent to the neighborhoods. So this is not considered high-rise, high-density.
Okay, all right, fair enough. That's a good point. I guess I'll still say what I was going to say, though, is that, regardless of that, I mean, it's kind of an indication that there are certain symptoms that lead me to believe that something's too big. And, the fact that it's not meeting the angular plane, regardless of whether it's an actual, criteria that needs to be met or not, is something. And I guess the only other thing I would say, and I hesitate to even say this because, there's more problems here than just this, but, I was a little surprised to see on page 10 of the staff report that they haven't really even thought about affordable housing. And it would seem to me that if you're going to propose something that's bigger, clearly bigger than what it is that you're supposed to be doing in an area, that's probably what you should lead with. And I just, there's just a number of issues with this application that really need to be looked at. And, I appreciate that the applicant has the right to apply for whatever. And it, as I said, this is the beginning of the planning process. So we are, there's a lot of water to go under the bridge, so to speak, between now and then. But I think that there are, there's quite a bit of work that needs to be done here to get this application to a place where it fits in better with the neighborhood. So anyway, having said that, that's all my comments. We have a motion on the floor to refer all comments back to staff. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. And our final item of the day is draft Richmond Hill Center zoning bylaw amendment. And that is going to be presented by Clement Chong. Clement, tell us all about the Richmond Hill Center in 5 minutes.
I will try my best. So good evening, Mayor West and members of council. I'm here to speak on the third and final item on the agenda tonight. The purpose of this presentation tonight is to provide a brief overview of the key points and highlights of the Richmond Hill Center zoning bylaw amendment that will ultimately implement the policies of the recently approved RHC secondary plan. To quickly recap and to provide some context, the RHC secondary plan is generally located in the areas northeast of Highway 7 and Yonge Street, as identified on the map that you see on the screen. And the RHC secondary plan was approved at the OOT following the resolution of the appeals in late 2024. The purpose of the RHC zoning bylaw is to fulfill the Planning Act requirements that stipulates, first, that no later than 3 years after the approval of the secondary plan, council must pass a zoning bylaw to support its implementation. Second, the proposed RHC zoning bylaw amendment includes permitted uses, restrictions, and development standards which implement the policies of the Richmond Hill Center secondary plan. The RHC zoning bylaw amendment is also one of the city's commitments under the Housing Accelerator Fund and must be completed within a specified timeframe in order to remain eligible to receive funding disbursements. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to hold a statutory public meeting and for staff to listen and receive feedback on the proposed RHC zoning bylaw amendment with the intent that it will be brought forward to council for approval in September 2025. The draft zoning bylaw amendment proposes minor changes and updates that will bring the RHC into the recently approved centers and corridors components of the comprehensive zoning bylaw. As required, it includes permitted uses and development standards such as lot coverage, minimum and maximum building heights, minimum and maximum density, maximum podium heights, angular plane requirements, step back provisions, and maximum floor plate sizes. The draft bylaw also includes 3 relevant schedules, and together it will ultimately form part of the comprehensive zoning bylaw. The first schedule you see on the screen is the zoning schedule A1. It identifies the areas to be zoned RHC, as shown on the map. For the lands on Eleanor Circle, there's additional holding provision. This area will be subject to land assembly criteria to ensure the eventual redevelopment of the area will be done in a coordinated manner. The draft zoning bylaw amendment will continue to permit single detached dwellings on Eleanor Circle until subject properties are assembled to create a single development block. If the conditions of the proposed zoning bylaw amendments are met, the holding provision may be removed and the lands be redeveloped in accordance to the prescribed regulations. The second map you see on the screen is the proposed density schedule, B1, which defines the zones which are applicable, which applies the minimum and maximum densities in accordance to the Richmond Hill Center secondary plan character areas. To further support appropriate development, appropriate built form in the RHC, the secondary plan provided some flexibility for site-specific densities when it can be demonstrated that the average densities outlined in the secondary plan could be met to the city's satisfaction. If such relief is required, this will be administered through the minor zoning bylaw amendment process. The third schedule on the screen is the proposed height schedule C1. that shows the minimum and maximum podium heights in accordance to the Richmond Hill Center secondary plan character areas. The secondary plan does not prescribe any specific maximum building heights, but instead governs building heights using maximum density and angular plane policies. A key component of the secondary plan was to direct the greatest intensification away from existing low-rise residential neighborhoods and towards the center of the RHC. This is done by way of angular plane requirements for transition areas that abut existing low-rise residential areas. Similar to density, the RHC secondary plan also provides some flexibility on angular plane by allowing minor projections when it can be demonstrated that the impacts such as shadow, wind, light, view, and privacy can be addressed to the city's satisfaction. And again, if this relief is required, this will be administered by way of a minor zoning bylaw amendment process. And a key item to note from the report are the areas within the Richmond Hill Center secondary plan boundary that were excluded from the Richmond Hill Center zoning bylaw. These areas are reflected on the map shown on your screen. First, there are 4 properties, the RHC that either relates to a recent OLT decision or involved in an active development application. The city intends to recognize these existing or pending permissions and therefore have excluded these properties from the proposed draft zoning bylaw amendment. Second is the high-tech EMZO. The regulations of the EMZO take precedence over municipal zoning bylaws, and therefore these lands have been excluded from the draft zoning bylaw amendment as well. And finally, an upcoming batch of the comprehensive zoning bylaw updates will introduce new citywide zoning for areas such as the Greenway, utility corridor, and the CNR. As such, these lands have been also excluded from the draft zoning bylaw amendment. In conclusion, staff recommends that the staff report with respect to the RHC zoning bylaw amendment be received for information, and that all comments from tonight will be referred back to staff for consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Regional Councillor Chan, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I was there at the open house the other night. It was just a week ago, I guess, right? Yeah. And we have quite a turnout. Anyway, it is helpful. And first of all, I'd like to move the motion, Mr. Chair, to have all the comments back to staff and receive these for information. I just want to seek clarification. In both the staff report and the slide, I guess in attachment 5, as well as slide number 7 and so on, because on page 3, it talks about of the 4 excluded area. And it said the comprehensive zoning bylaw would come back dealing with Greenway, including woodlands. And if you go to one of those slides, 7 or maybe attachment 5, I'm looking specifically at the northeast corner of 7 and Young. There is currently a woodlot. That falls under excluded from the bylaw. Is that not my understanding that is also under the EMZO as well? Through Mr. Chair, just to confirm.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the woodlot was excluded from the EMZO. The woodlot was excluded from the EMZO. Yes.
Thank you for that answer. So it falls back to the city in terms of that, because because there is a phrase somewhere, the EMZO is silent on this, or actually not in it. So it's the city's responsibility to come back later on with comprehensive zoning bylaw regulating that.
That is correct.
Right.
The woodlot is owned by the city and therefore excluded from the EMZO.
Got it. And well, I guess at this point in time, the city can deal with what within that area that we could under this particular bylaw that will be coming back in September. So just to confirm, and I noted that on page 9, through Mr. Chair, just confirm. So between now and September, when the bylaw will be brought back, then there will be no further public consultation, so to speak. I mean, is that correct? Through Mr. Chair.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we had a public open house last week, as you know. We're here at council public meeting today, and our intent is to engage directly with impacted landowners between now and September. We haven't heard a significant amount of feedback on this. It's not a surprise, given that what we're doing here is implementing the Richmond Hill Center secondary plan, which had a very extensive consultation process associated with it through its developments. But we are committed to working with landowners that have an interest. And I know as you know, there was a landowner who had an interest at the open house, and that same landowner has submitted documentation to us today as part of this agenda. And so we'll certainly follow up with them and anyone else who has an interest through the program.
Thank you for the answers from Mr. Chair. And yes, I did note that at least one, if not more, landowner would have comments and so on. But effectively, the bylaw to come back in September, substantively will be already here. Isn't that attachment 1? So, Mr. Chair.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the draft bylaw has been prepared, and that is what we're consulting on today. We will take feedback from council and the public and evaluate that feedback through the process and potentially make revisions to the bylaw in advance of bringing it back to council in September. But our intent is to do that consultation, to evaluate that feedback, to make revisions if needed, and to bring it back to council in advance of the end of September.
Okay, thank you. Is there any particular fixed cut-off date in terms of getting feedback from all parties, including landowners? Through Mr. Chair.
Through you, Mr. Chair. We were at this meeting to take feedback. We'll continue to engage. We will likely need to have a final draft of this sometime in August in order to have it prepared for September approval. September approval is important to us because it's associated with our half commitments. And so we're committed to advancing it within those timelines. But up until the point where we need to have documents completed for council agendas, we'll continue to engage and work with interested parties.
Thank you for the answer. So just to be clear, so there's no particular fixed set date. By then, it's no more feedback or further comments or suggestion would be in time to have the final bylaw to come back to council for consideration. I think that's probably fair to say that. Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Our timelines are fixed in that they're associated with the half deadlines, and therefore we need to have sufficient time to bring items forward to council in order to meet those deadlines. But like today, we're not sitting here with a deadline of 2 weeks from now. We work with the community and interested parties and receive feedback from council in order to refine this document.
Thank you. Yeah, as I said, I move the motion. Anyone who have the interest on this, do it soon or later in terms of providing comments to council members and our staff. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. As I said, I move the motion as recommended.
Okay, Councillor Hsu, you want to second it?
Yes, I want to second it. Thank you for the presentation, and I would like to refer it back to the staff, and I would like to move it forward. Just 2 questions about this. The first one is referring to the last part of the staff report, which is the map, Appendix A1. I think is regarding the slide presentation, slide number 4. It's about the area of the Richmond Hill Center. It shows that one of the areas under this zoning bylaw is the southeast corner of Young and Bantry, which is the top part of the map. This in the center top. Yeah, actually, where there's currently a townhouse complex with residents living there now. And according to the B1 the next page, B1, it shows that the FSI, the density, which could be up to 4, at the same area, which is obviously not in the current situation. So that means if any future application want to develop a high rise there, the density could be up to 4. So that means if the Richmond Hill Center zone bylaw designation applies to this area, it could mean that this area residents may be required to relocate, right? Am I correct, through Mr. Chair?
Through you, Mr. Chair. The plan doesn't envision the redevelopment of those townhouse complexes. And in order to facilitate that, it would be a very complex consolidation that would be very challenging within the market. So the density that's being contemplated in that area is a density that contemplates those townhomes, those existing townhomes remaining.
Okay.
And I think it would be very, very challenging to see those sites redeveloped from a market economics perspective. So it's not something that we envision being likely or likely feasible, quite honestly.
So that means there's no any application want to make this area as a FSI 4 or just?
So that site is through you, Mr. Chair. That site is a site that's substantially built from our perspective. There may be small scale development that happens within there on undeveloped lands, but for the most part, that character area is primarily built, and the densities that are reflected there would be reflective of those uses continuing within that area.
Okay, I see. I got it now. My next question, and also the last question, is even if the city has zoning bylaw plans in place for the Richmond Hill Center area, can any potential applicant or developers still appeal this zoning bylaw? For example, when they ask for a greater density or increase the building height, something like that, while they submit the application, can they appeal for this zoning bylaw as well?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I mean, the city would consider site-specific rezoning applications on lands. The intent here in pre-zoning these lands is to facilitate development in accordance with the secondary plan. And so we're allowing developers who meet the city's vision for this area to essentially have the option of bypassing a zoning bylaw amendment process and move direct to site plan if they're in compliance with the zoning. The reason why we're doing that is to, support the city moving towards achieving its housing targets. We want to be able to facilitate development that is in accordance with the community and council's vision for this area. And so this is an opportunity to potentially streamline or fast track those applications. If someone has an interest in moving forward a development application that's not in accordance with the secondary plan, then there would be another process to do that. Okay. And the city would, obviously evaluate those applications within that context and make the appropriate decisions associated with those applications. So this doesn't preclude that from happening. It's intended rather to provide a more direct path for development to proceed in accordance with the secondary plan.
I see. The reason why I ask this question, because I know there's an ongoing appeal at the Young and Norfolk 16. There's an appeal to the OLT ongoing to appeal the comprehensive zoning bylaw there.
Yes.
Yeah, so I just wondering, could it happen again in the Richmond Hill Center?
Through you, Mr. Chair, within the context of the applications that we've been dealing with in Richmond Hill Center to date, we've decided to recommend to council that we deal with those as exceptions and remove them from this process. Those applicants generally have an interest in meeting the secondary plan, and we've settled a number of them through council's direction through the OLT. And so active applications have been considered as part of this process. Moving forward, if someone wants to come forward with a development application, we would evaluate those through our standard process and make the appropriate evaluation and recommendations to council.
Okay, got it now. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Great, thank you. Councilor Davidson.
Thank you, through Mr. Chair. Just a quick question. Does the city get updates on where we're at with the subway? Because all of this is great as long as we have that subway, but I haven't heard anything and maybe you do.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we don't have any official updates from Metrolinx or the province on the timing or delivery of the subway. That's not to say that progress has stopped or work has stopped. We continue to be very active in the subway project. We're evaluating designs, a variety of different components of the subway. So the project continues to move forward. But in terms of when it ultimately will be completed, I mean, we can see that these are complex projects that, have, some potential risk, and timelines sometimes can be challenging. So the last date that we received from the province was a target date of 2031. We'll see if we meet 2031. I suspect that we may be, we may be getting some revised timelines from the province at some point. But
you mean shovels in the ground or putting the last bit of dirt down? Do you mean the beginning or the end?
No. So the last update from the province in terms of when they actually offered timelines was that the subway would be operational by 2031. Shovels in the ground have already occurred. Like the early works at Finch Station has already been completed. So this project is, underway and moving forward. And we're moving through procurement for the various components of the subway. Next up is the tunneling contract, which may be awarded later on this year. So the project is progressing, but in terms of timelines that I could say, yes, we have a revised timeline that we have confidence in. We don't have a revised timeline from the province that we would put in front of council and with any confidence to say that this is the date that they will be operational at this point. Hopefully once we're through the procurement process for all the components of the subway, we'll have better timelines.
Thank you.
If you're available on the weekend, I have like a wheelbarrow and a shovel. We could just start digging. Would that help? Okay, maybe not. Okay, anybody else? Okay, seeing none. Again, just a couple of quick comments. I was at the open house the other day, and I have to say that the artist rendering that you have prepared, including a number of the different amenities that are in that area, I really think this plan, I mean, it got off on probably on a not a great foot when it was released as an EMZO, and the public wasn't particularly happy about it. But I think as we're doing the work that's been done through the staff work and so on, and when we're starting to see how the amenities and the street patterns and the other things that are happening in that area, I will say I think that it is turning into something that's going to be a very important place in Richmond Hill. And so I appreciate the work that's being done. So I think, we're going to move forward on this. It'll come back in September, and we'll get that, that underway. And you're right, Councillor Davidson. I mean, the missing link right now is to actually get the subway here, because that would really be the trigger to get the development, going and have all of this vision realized, at least beginning to be realized. So, okay, with that being said, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. And we'll see council here tomorrow morning for council. Oh, motion to adjourn. Councillor Tree, Councillor Shu, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you.